Well, hello, and welcome everyone. I'm here today with Kenji Fujita from our Circle of Success membership. So, hey, Kenji.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, so Kenji and I actually met a long, long time ago. We worked together way back in the day, and I'm so honored to just have him be part of the community and have share some of the successes and wins that he's experienced with you today. So, Kenji, why don't you just tell us a little bit about kind of your role as a business analyst. I know you were like implementation manager, right? If I remember correctly, and kind of what you were looking to accomplish when you joined originally back in January.
Sure.
Yeah.
So my title right now is Director of Technology Operations.
Okay.
I had done implementations. Sales engineering was my title
Mm-hmm.
uh, previous to this. Previous to that, done some operations analyst, some project management. But all in all, I came to realize a few years ago, after following you for so long, that a lot of the core work I was doing was actually business analysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people would ask me, "What do you do?" And I would explain to them what my job was and how I help. But I never really had a core understanding until I realized this is business analysis. And as soon as I said that, people understood it.
Mm.
So where I'm at right now, director of technology operations at my company. So a few years ago, we decided to move from a service company to a software company, which meant we have to develop our technology
Mm-hmm.
team, basically. And we had two people at that point, two other persons, and I was asked to come in and sort of help grow it and help organize it and figure out what we need to get from point A to point B. And so that's what I did. And we're up to like over 30 people. I created business processes here and there, teams. I trained them, made sure they had the tools they needed and so forth. And so, as professionally, that's kind of where I am at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember that's like a huge amount of growth in a couple of years to go from two people to 30. So when you were back in January, what were you really like hoping to achieve when you joined the Circle of Success? Like what
Well,
shift were you looking to make?
sure. So when I came in January, just kind of give you where I was mentally.
Yeah.
I was the busiest person out there. Okay. I mean, literally, I wake up, I jump, start running, I'd be accomplishing things left and right, doing this, doing that, and by 10 o'clock, I had done more than most people had done, in their entire day.
Hmm.
And, I took pride in that, but however, I felt like I was always running and not really getting anywhere, you know? And there were days where I would have so much on my plate that I wouldn't know where to start. And I'd start here or there and I get distracted and I move all over the place and it was crazy. And I'm like, this is not good. I mean, I'm gonna die early if I keep moving at this pace. So what I was hoping to accomplish with the group was to get amongst other persons of like-mindedness and maybe learn some tricks, some tools, some things that can help me better manage myself, basically.
Hmm.
And mind you, at the time, uh, everyone told me I was the most productive person they've ever seen. I was so organized and this and that. But it may have been out here, whatever. But up here, yeah, it was a mess.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what my hope was when we first started.
Yeah, I mean, that just I go through that cycle of that every once in a while, that feeling, it's for me, it kind of lodges in my stomach, right? Of that constant worry or like that worry of what's going to come next. How am I going to get it all done?
Mhm.
But to be in that kind of all the time would be, yeah, it's damaging to your health in a lot of ways. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So I know you've experienced some shifts around that, but and you
Mhm.
have kind of alluded to you have some things to share, and I don't actually know all of what you have to share today. So do you want to just dive in with some of the things that have changed over the last few months?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. So when I was being so productive and organized, like everyone says, I did a lot of to-do lists, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I had to-do list on Google Keep. That's where I would keep most of my to-do list. I had them categorized, personal stuff, work stuff to fix the house, all these different things. And then within work, I had it categorized by different types of, whatever it was. And my thing was, as long as I knocked off a lot of items, that was great. I was being very accomplished. I was taking care of business. But like I said, it wasn't mentally up here.
Yeah.
So one of our first meetings or teachings, maybe it was a conversation you and I had, I can't remember, you talked about a mindset. All right. It's all a mindset, right? So here I am coming to the group hoping to learn some tricks and tips, of the trade. Like maybe there's a better time management software, right? I was looking at Franklin Covey tools because I used to use those in the past, and they served me well. And then I thought maybe there's something else that someone might have a better way for me to manage this so I'm not frazzled. But then you talked about the mindset thing, and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, oh, all right, that's a different way of looking at a to-do list or thinking about what I'm doing. And then we had another talk about limiting beliefs. All right. And that really caught me because I had, of course, I've read articles. I know this stuff, but sometimes, you think you know something, but you don't really know it because you really haven't applied it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can read something and say, yeah, everyone should do that, but you don't do it yourself. So you don't really understand it. So I started thinking about it, and we had that one, like a worksheet where write down something that you believe, and let's talk about it, right? And then we actually had one of our classes, everyone sort of talked about what was holding them back, and you helped identify what the limiting belief was in those. And I was like, wow, okay. So I started thinking about myself, and I had some really, really limiting beliefs, which I thought were very productive. I thought they were the way it should be. Like, I'll give you, for instance, one of my things was, I mentioned to you that as long as I'm marking off things off my to-do list, I'm being productive. That's actually a limiting belief because it ties me to time, versus some other criteria of success.
Right. Like value or impact, right?
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Impact's the good word. And so I started thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, so maybe the thing isn't to just knock off as many to-do list items. Maybe I got to think about what those to-do list items are. What's going to have the most impact? And I just kind of set back a little bit. I started thinking about that, and then I had some other limiting beliefs I came across. Like, I was so used to being busy in the morning that in my head, if I didn't accomplish a lot in the morning, it was a wasteful day because nothing else was going to get done because, I'm a morning person and all of that. And I realized that's only true because I say it's true, So I had to address some of that and realize that I can do something that's impactful at 5 p.m., the same as I can do something at 8 a.m. And I know it's a minor change in how you think, but it was like crazy how much it helped me. And then
Well, because it gives you the chance to always recover too, right? Yeah. So if at 10 a.m. something went wrong, or I know sometimes you would have to deal with a production issue, right? And you would have to drop everything. So then it gives you the chance to recover that day and still declare it a success at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And then another one I had, just another limiting belief that was more on a personal note, was if I didn't get to the gym at 5 a.m. when they opened, I probably wasn't going to get a workout in because they got busy and I don't like the busyness and this and that and this and that. And I'm like, so all of this stuff may have served me well previously in my earlier years when I, had less people relying on me, less responsibility. I'm a dad now and, I'm married. So I got a lot of people relying on me, plus all the team in technology that I'm working with. Whereas before it was just me. Right. So I could just say this and that, but now there's just a lot. So I sort of changed some things around, and I started just really concentrating on what's going to be impactful, and all the little stuff, it'll happen at some point, and it turns out some of that little stuff either didn't get done or somebody else did it, and it wasn't a big deal.
And that was another, I remember on a teaching call, you were wanting to take on like another project, but you were kind of concerned about adding too much, right? And we talked about delegating and having a team. Is that something that's kind of come to fruition as well, where you've had more people showing up to help you in different ways? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it wasn't that I actually went out and asked for the help.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of just happened.
Because it was there, right? You just it was.
I think it was because I was doing everything, you know. And once I stopped doing everything and things just had to get done, people just said, "Oh, well, I'll just do it," you know, or "I'll do it," or whatever, and people just did it. So one of those things of, you know, sometimes you think that you got to be the person doing it because you're the one that can do it right, right? And so I'm like, all right, yeah, this has to be done for the team, but it's not that important for me. I'm going to work on this. And then somebody else saw it and said, "Oh, I'll just do it. No problem, Kenji." And I'm like, okay. So it's kind of funny how things just happen to work out like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you allow it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Once you shift your mindset around it, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was another thing around that too, Laura, where because of that, I became less busy, right?
Yeah.
And I had to deal with that because, you know, even now, sometimes I deal with that because if I'm not physically or mentally doing something, I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything, you know? And so it was almost like my value that I'm putting on myself is based on my activity versus some other things, you know? And another thing, you know, when you talked about the different levels of business analysis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm kind of between 3 and 4, I think.
Right.
And when you get to becoming more of a thought leader, it's less about doing things versus learning about things, understanding it, communicating it, and helping others and so forth.
Right.
And so that's where I want to be ultimately, because that's where I get the passion. I mean, I love doing like mentor activities, teaching somebody something, you know, on that end versus actually, you know, getting a spreadsheet and having to do some analysis and things like that. So
right. And then your impact multiplies because you can train people to do the kinds of things that you're so good at in your organization, and the value or the impact kind of grows from there too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit more about this, what it's like not to be busy. Cause it's unsettling. I have this, like I've worked through this one and it keeps coming back. Right. But like, so what do you do? Like, what do you do now with your free time?
Well, so it sort of goes along the lines of developing myself, and also along the lines of doing other things other than thinking. You know, there's physical things you can do, there's thinking things you can do, there's creative things you can do. So I've learned that one of the things that helps me calm down when I get anxiety because I'm not doing something or because I don't have a long list of things to do that day, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Is I watch TED Talks. That's sort of because it spurs my imagination around something that's a bigger picture versus a specific task.
Yep.
And it like I said, it calms me down. It brings me back, sort of give me a bigger picture and realize that, you know, there's more value than just sitting there and doing tasks. And that's where I want to go. So that's where I have to make sure I put some focus on that.
You want to be a TEDx speaker?
No, just more of the bigger picture person, you know, and understanding that and helping others, you know, reach whatever they want to reach as far as their career goals, personal goals, or whatever, versus just, you know, making sure work gets done.
Right. Yeah. So you're creating the space to receive those new ideas.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then have the time and the luxury of doing something with that as well to bring it back.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know what, when you say having the time, I think it's making the time.
It's a good reframe.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's like a limiting belief, right? If I'm like, oh, I don't have the time. You have the time. You just got to make the time. You just got to knock something else off or say no to something, right? So that's kind of something that happens. And, you know, this applies to my family life too, because my kids and my wife, they're like, uh-oh, dad's coming in the room. He's got a list of things for us to do and all of this or whatever. And last year I got to that point where I was like that because I'm like, listen, this house has to get in shape. You know, we got graduation parties that we're hosting. We got this and that going on. We're not going to be here and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And yeah, I became that tyrant boss. All right, everyone's, you got to do your chores. This is what you are going to do. And then I sat back and I realized that's not helping them. I mean, they're kids, first off, you know, this isn't something they're not in the work world like, you know, we are, where we've experienced having a boss come in and tell them you got to do this, 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 and just kind of doing it. And I realized that wasn't helping them develop. It wasn't helping them get life skills that they can use, right? So instead of telling them what to do, I sort of had to share with them and inspire them on my vision of our household and our family. And as corny as that sounds, it works.
Wow.
Yeah.
So no more taskmaster, just holding the vision. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's just starting with the vision, starting vision so they understand the context and then saying, hey, this is what's an important thing that's coming up, or, we want to make sure that we are prepared for this and this and that. And then saying, what do we got to do to make sure? And then having them figure out what we got to do,
Right.
versus me telling them this is what we got to do.
Yeah. But so far there hasn't been it sounds like you're still being appreciated for the value and the impact that you're adding, right? Like there hasn't been an issue, right?
There hasn't been, because sometimes, when there's that saying where no news is good news. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of times no news can be bad news, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I go. So if I don't speak to my boss or someone in my company for a couple of days, because we all work remotely.
Yeah.
One way is to say, oh, well, there's no problems. Another way is to think, well, what's going on? How come nobody's telling me anything? Right? Mm. So there's that. And so the funny thing is realizing that I think this way and I have sometimes these crazy thoughts or ways of thinking. I'm thinking all of these other people here in my group, what if they're doing the same thing?
Most likely they are. Yeah.
Like they're, yeah. And then, and this kind of ties to our keynote speaker, Paula, we had the other day. Mm-hmm. And she was talking about how she wants to transform from, corporate culture to more of running her own ship, creating a culture around, more acceptance and more positivity. And I realized, that's my thing. That's like actually one of the values I bring. And one of my passions is doing that. And I do that right now personally through coaching. I coach softball. And I've coached other sports with my daughters. And I realized how important that is to me because when it came time for the softball season, that was the number one thing I would do in the day was prepare my plan for that day, my practice plan. What am I going to talk about? What is needed for the team? What do the girls need to hear? And all of that. And it was building the culture. And so now I'm like, working and thinking about how can I express this culture into my technology team that we have now, right? And it's not like I haven't been doing it, but I haven't really thought about it proactively. It just sort of happens, So yeah, that's sort of it's kind of funny how things.
That next step of the thought leadership, cultural leadership. Yeah, I love that. And have you received any recognition for these changes and that ability to? I mean, I can tell that you're starting to contribute at a higher level in your organization and take on kind of bigger things. So is that something that's been noticed yet, or you feel like it's on the horizon?
Probably on the horizon. I mean, like I said, this is one of the things that I just do is, I just try to make sure everyone's together and everyone understands things going. And I think everyone else in the company kind of knows that's kind of what I do and what I bring to the table. So as far as recognition, nobody's come to me and say, hey, you did a great job here. That's kind of what they expect of me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but, I'm not so concerned about that because another thing I've also realized through our circle of success is that I'm in control of this destiny here. What I do for work is just the work. But what I do within it and what I do after it, outside of it, and all that stuff. That's me. So yeah, so I don't necessarily need to have the recognition because I know what I'm doing. And I know every now and then it's good to sort of market yourself, in some aspects. And I do that to some extent, but it's just not in me to go out there and say, hey, did you see what I did?
Right. Yeah. But I love that though, because you're getting it from on the inside, right? So you're feeling the difference and that's enough. So that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, Kenji. Do you have any, before we close here, you've been super generous with your time and your sharing.
Sure.
Anything else that you'd want to share before we wrap things up?
If there's one thing that I could tell everyone, it all started with the word mindset. This whole change in me thinking or whatever all came to the word mindset. Once that word got in me and I started thinking about all of my world is here, it's not out here, that sort of started things moving in the direction that it's going. So I'd love to share that part.
Yeah, awesome. And that's the part you can control. So that's super empowering. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and more to come. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right.